Hi there, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic New Year's Day. Wanted to give you a quick Facebook Live here. I know we talked yesterday about the potential for severe weather, and a lot of new data has come in. A lot has changed on what the thinking was yesterday. So, definitely still have the potential for significant severe weather as we move throughout the afternoon hours tomorrow here in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. All modes of severe weather are possible, and all hands are going to be on deck as we move throughout Monday afternoon. So, that's why we've got Mr. Dan Scoff, chief meteorologist here, back in the house after a well-deserved vacation. And Dan, how you feeling right now, by the way?
Josh, I just got to say thanks so much for what you've done over the last couple of weeks. I know you've been grinding. I know you've been working hard. I've seen a lot of positive comments. It's just so nice that I could just totally disconnect and rely on you to take care of everything. You and Zach definitely held down the
Hold
fort.
on one second,
And
Dan. I cannot hear you in my microphone right now. So
oh,
hold
you
on
can't.
just 1 second. I think
Okay.
we're having a few technical difficulties. I know we were setting up OBS and things are a little hit or miss here right now. I can't hear you right now. I think everybody can hear you right now, but I
Yeah.
can't
Let
hear you.
me let me know if you can
So,
hear me.
what I might do is because I'm having problems with the speakers here. I'm gonna call you so that way I
Yeah.
can hear you on the other side of the line.
Hey, no worries, man. Yeah, that'll work. We because we tried
I
that
can't.
both.
I don't know what you're
So
saying.
so
So,
people can hear us both. We'll figure it out though. I'll be in there tomorrow and we'll figure it out
yeah, I
for
think
sure.
everybody can hear you. I think that's fine.
Okay, Josh, now you can
Yes.
hear me for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Both sound great. So first of all, like I've been saying, thanks so much for what you've done over the past couple of weeks. I know I have unplugged, I've disconnected, I had great time with family, and hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. And it's definitely been a great time to unplug. Had my mom in town, had Jennifer's parents and family in town, and I know you've been grinding. And I thank you for what you and Zach have done to hold down the fort. And thankfully, the weather's been pretty tame. But here we go tomorrow, kicking off the start of the work week with a bang. So I just want to say I'm so thankful for you, and we're going to dive into this severe weather risk for sure.
Oh yeah, and we've been keeping tabs on this over the last few days as well. Just watching it evolve. A lot of things have been changing over the last few days. I know, and we're all over this event. And let's go ahead and get right to it right now. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, you've been on top of it for sure. You have done an absolutely fantastic job. I've heard positive comments from a lot of people, and
Oh man,
I'm just so thankful for you to be on
Wait,
our weather team
hey man,
and
I'm thankful
just
for you giving me the
just kicking
opportunity to
tail
be
and
here because
taking
it's
names,
just
man. Really
amazing, man.
appreciate it.
It's awesome. Yes, let's do this. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up our graphics here
Well,
so
let's
that we
dive
can
in,
go
shall
ahead
we?
and see what's going on. So here's our weather headlines. Severe thunderstorms expected Monday afternoon, as we've previously mentioned. Now, we've got a time frame for when these storms are going to arrive. You notice that the most likely timing is around 2 o'clock on Monday through midnight. Now, of course, that can change quite a bit, and 2 o'clock's probably on the early end for the highest in severe weather threat. But that's the earliest we could see severe weather. Midnight might be a little bit too late, but if these storms stick around a little bit longer, it could go until then. I think, though, and Dan, you might agree with me on this as well, the best chance for significant severe weather, and this is when all the parameters really set up, is right around dinner time Monday between 4 and 8 o'clock. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree with that. And I think like if you're going to narrow it down even more, maybe around like 7 o'clock. I mean, we're
Hmm.
talking 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, which unfortunately will be after sundown. Even though the sun is getting, setting a little bit later now that we're beyond the winter solstice. But the models have been pretty insistent, as you mentioned, like right around 6, 7 o'clock, 23:00 Z, that this energy just comes in and you can just see the ingredients as this system ejects really start to increase. And we'll highlight some of that in this Facebook Live.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we're about to show that water vapor imagery because it is really, really impressive for sure as it's cranking in across the desert Southwest. So, the two main risk factors are strong tornadoes and damaging winds. The large hail risk also exists, but it's not maybe as high as the wind and tornado risk. But all modes of severe weather possible. Very heavy rainfall likely, though. yesterday it looked like we might get a little bit more in terms of that flash flooding potential. That's gone down significantly because it does look like these cells are going to stay a little bit more isolated, a little bit more discreet. And that means that while we will still see heavy rainfall, I think the flooding potential has gone down considerably compared to yesterday. Now, taking a look at satellite radar right now, you can see those clouds beginning to increase from the west. But here's that low pressure system, and it's a strong one. I mean, this thing is cranking up right now near Nevada and Arizona. I saw some of the crazy snowfall amounts that were going on in the mountains in California yesterday. I mean, this system really means business. And as it digs across the desert Southwest, it's picking up steam, negatively tilted trough as well, which also means the severe weather potential is going to be increasing. Dan, I think you would agree with me. That thing is really getting going right now.
Yeah, it almost appears to be almost what we call a panhandle hook,
Mm.
where these systems come into about the Texas panhandle and eject and then move northeast. And when it does that, it is flinging out the energy. That's a little bit of an issue, as you mentioned, with that energy coming in. Now, I won't be able to show comments, but I will be able to comment on some of the comments. Someone said that Matthew said there's a big ring around the moon, a circle around it tonight as those high clouds roll in. Now that represents those ice crystals in the clouds, and it's just at the right time where it means a ring around the moon means a storm is coming soon. There was one last night too. I attended a wedding, and we had that ring around the moon. It means a storm's coming soon, and that happens as early as tomorrow. So 1 to 2 days, you got a change in the weather. So we've got that negative tilt question from John Leachman. If negative tilt, why is AM convection possible? So it absolutely is, John. And that's actually one of the concerns in terms of maybe, kind of making this severe weather risk a little less. So maybe people think we're hyping it, or we're overboard on the risk factor. But that is one of the concerns. As this system swings in, because it is negative tilt, it will have additional energy that will most likely pop up some showers and storms. So are those storms going to develop ahead of what's expected? Because if they do, that will no doubt lessen the severe weather risk. Now, that is great news if you want to do that, and I think everybody does. So, I mean, storm chasers don't want, storms to hit people and hurt buildings and destroy things. They want it out in the middle of the open. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't happen. But that negative tilt, and we'll go through that, that's important because that means a lot of energy is swinging in. But there is going to be a cap, I think, in the morning. And you talked about that, Josh, as well, that cap that could happen in the early morning hours.
Yeah, exactly. And if that cap holds until the late afternoon, early evening hours, when those parameters are really in place, such as the low level jet, which is going to play a big role in this system, because we're not going to really have the instability in place until the afternoon hours. We're not going to really have those upper level dynamics move in until the afternoon hours as well. So it's kind of like, it's almost like the parameters are lagging a little bit throughout the morning hours tomorrow.
A little bit, and that's because the system is slowing down just a smidge. As you mentioned, the trends have been slowing this system down over the last couple of days. So.
Yes.
Go ahead and remove John Leachman's comment, by the way, since I can see it behind the scenes. It's kind of what the people are looking at on this screen. So, yeah, go ahead and talk about that on that jet stream.
Yeah, so here's that negatively tilted trough that we were talking about, too. You can see it right there. So there's the low pressure system to our northwest, the surface low as it moves to our northwest. And we almost got kind of a triple point situation going on here. We'll have the warm front draped over central Missouri. We'll have the cold front and dry line over Oklahoma. And then you can see that negatively tilted trough there with those isobars right over northwest Arkansas. And that's all that energy swinging through our area throughout the late afternoon and early evening. But notice that doesn't happen in the morning hours. That doesn't move in until the afternoon and early evening. So that's why if we have that morning convection, we have that morning rainfall and cloud cover, that could be our saving grace. That could limit the severe weather risk quite a bit.
One thing I want to mention too, Josh, is you can see a lot of people don't realize the wind streams with this jet stream, but it's basically parallel to those black lines. So if you can imagine a river of air that's flowing parallel to what we call those 300 millibar iso heights, meaning every one of those lines is an equal a line of equal height, the wind will follow exactly those lines. So it'll basically be parallel to those lines. So if you notice how the lines are maybe from the south-southwest to north-northeast, that jet stream will be almost straight northerly, which is very similar to what happened on November 4th. But we'll talk about some of the concerns in terms of tornado potential, because a lot of people are asking about tornado potential. And we'll get to that with the risk.
Yes, absolutely. So let's go ahead and look at that risk, because we've got that pulled up here. Now, this is the day 2 convective outlook, and the last update we got was at around 11 o'clock this morning. So remember, this is about 10, 11 hours into the future now. And so this is going to get updated as we move throughout the overnight hours tonight and become the day 1 convective outlook. But you can see the area of greatest confidence Monday afternoon is draped over northeast Texas, northern Louisiana, southwest and central Arkansas, and far southeast Oklahoma. We zoom in a little bit closer.
Feel free to take me off the screen too, so you can see that full.
Oh yeah. Here we go. Let's there we go. Right there. Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove the banners as well there. But there's that latest severe weather risk. And I talked about this yesterday too, Dan, in the Facebook Live. I did expect them to lift it a little bit further north and west compared to what they had during the day 3 convective outlook. And sure enough, they did, because that level 3 out of 5 risk is now draped over the Interstate 40 corridor south. So that's where the greatest confidence in severe weather exists right now. And if you want to get a little bit more specific, here's that tornado risk, which again, along and south of Interstate 40, that's where that highest risk for strong tornadoes exists. Now, Dan, and this is the most important part about this system, really, I think, is the storm mode. And now yesterday, it looked like it was going to be a little bit more messy. But if we keep these discrete cells and we don't get any of that morning convection, I think that strong tornado potential could be realized in a spot.
Absolutely. And another thing too, another important thing to note is that you talk about how the 5%, which is the low threat, and you see low and you might write it off and think, oh, well, we won't have a tornado. You said where the greatest potential is. That doesn't mean the potential doesn't exist in Northwest Arkansas. So, and sometimes the models don't get the exact location of the potential perfect. So it looks like there's no threat in Northwest Arkansas or a low threat. You see that word and you see the word low and you're thinking, oh, I don't really have to worry about tornado potential. Not necessarily. If these storms are discrete and isolated and they track in the way that's favorable to the wind shear, you will see the potential for rotating storms and tornadoes. Now, there are concerns and there are questions in terms of if that tornado potential will be realized. But I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And I think a lot of people write that off and see the boundaries. The storms don't know where those boundaries are. These are made by the Storm Prediction Center. And as awesome as they are, and as awesome as, there are at severe weather forecasting, they are not perfect by any means.
No. So, and here's the thing too. You compare the the first time they issued a severe weather risk, by the way, was 6 days out. They had an outlined area of severe weather for this system 6 days out. And most of Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley was not in that severe weather risk. But the trends have been further north and west with each new model run that comes out. We've seen that significant severe weather risk creep closer and closer to Northwest Arkansas. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets extended a little bit farther north with the day 1 convective outlook. Now, are they going to put a high risk of tornadoes? Or are we going to start seeing red on this map? I don't know if we have enough confidence yet that they will. But based on the newest trends, I think this is going to continue to lift further towards Northwest Arkansas, at least a significant tornado risk.
Yeah, and you can show some of the other parameters. We also have what's called the significant tornado parameter.
Yes.
And you'll see how all of this ramps up right at sundown, which, by the way, is when the low-level jet kicks in. So,
here's 12 o'clock. And again, we don't have those parameters in place yet. So if we have any storms that form around this time, they're not going to be tapping into that, highly volatile environment. But we get to around 1, 2, 3 o'clock, it starts really ramping up here in Northwest Arkansas. Now, I'll tell you what, Dan, the newest HRRR just came out, and there's holes in the instability, and there's holes in those significant tornado parameters. Because when I showed this on the 5 o'clock news, it was a lot more impressive. I mean, you had significant tornado potential all the way up and down Interstate 49. Now you can see it's kind of broken up just a little bit as we move throughout the afternoon. So
Yeah, now look at that at 8 o'clock in the River Valley.
woo,
Yeah,
that's not good.
that's up there. And
Yeah.
that's exactly where that greater potential for the severe weather is. It's based on a computer model. So if that
Mhm.
model is incorrect and there aren't any thunderstorms that develop during the afternoon in Northwest Arkansas and clip the area, then you can expect those holes to be filled in with significant tornado potential.
Mhm. And then once that cold front pushes through in the overnight hours. Now, here's
It's
one thing we
done.
got to watch too. QLCS potential. As that cold front crashes in Monday evening. Because I think we'll get these little discrete cells out ahead of the front. And then once that front moves through, it could be a little line of storms. Of course, the models are a little bit all over the place on storm mode still and what exactly evolves. But I kind of saw that yesterday. Most of the models were showing that you have these clusters of isolated supercells, and then the crashing front came in. But at the same time, the instability will probably be sapped anyway. So I
Yeah.
don't know if the tornado potential will be quite as high during the late evening, but still something to watch.
We have to look at what's called there's three ingredients to QLCS potential.
Mhm.
We know that the system will have strong low level winds. So the 0 to 3 kilometer bulk shear is probably going to be greater than 30 knots.
Mhm.
So that means that the line orientation will have to be kind of northwest to southeast, which will make it very favorable. So we'll see if there's any enhanced surges or bows in the line, which would cause that QLCS tornado
Yes.
potential. So those are kind of the three things that we have to look at, the three ingredient method,
Yes, absolutely.
which is a balanced shear cold pool regime. You have to have the 0 to 3 kilometer line normal component, and then you have to have those surges through elevated thunderstorm activity, just the strength of the system. Now, if it doesn't happen, then you can bet that the evening is going to get pretty rough. But there, look at that. There's one storm. Go back just a little ways, Josh, if you can, and look at like 2, 3 o'clock. That's one isolated cell. The tornado potential is ramping up, but it's not quite there yet. The wind shear hasn't increased enough where that's probably going to be tornado potential unless the models are underdoing that, which is a possibility. But that could overturn our environment and weaken our instability for the main line of storms, as you can see.
Yep.
So it's all dependent on the afternoon convection. But even with that being said, the wind shear and the environment that's in place, if these storms can tap into it, it's going to get pretty hairy pretty quick.
Well, it's going to get nasty really, really quickly too.
Yeah.
And it's like, I hate comparing systems, and stuff like that, but it really is very similar to November 4th in a lot of ways. And it's also similar to December 13th in a lot of ways, Dan, because those are two systems that had kind of similar setups. We didn't know if the instability was going to surge in time. We didn't know about what prefrontal convection, what role it would play in
Yeah.
terms of the severe weather risk, right? And ultimately, what happened is November 4th, we did get the instability. We did get breaks in the cloud cover. We didn't have prefrontal convection, and we ended up having a tornado outbreak in our area. Exact opposite happened December 13th, where the warm front didn't really lift to the north far enough, which is not going to be a problem with this system because it already is to our north right now. But we also had those little shower activity early in the morning hours ahead of the main line, and we ended up having no problems here.
Yeah.
But to our
And
south,
that's
there was major tornadoes.
And there's very rare a time where there's so much confidence in the early morning hours that the Storm Prediction Center goes moderate or high risk. Very, very rarely does that happen. In
Yeah.
fact, if you look at some of the questions on here, I know we're getting lots of comments, and we'll go through some of them. Jacob asks, is a moderate risk possible somewhere, or is it too uncertain for that? there is that uncertainty. I think, though, honestly, that it appears that the ingredients are coming together in Southwest Arkansas as well. And so I do think there might be a moderate risk, but I don't think it gets issued at 6Z, especially with this latest HRRR now showing the additional thunderstorm development that takes place.
Yeah, which throws in a lot of uncertainty now.
Yep, there is that uncertainty as to what's called convective mode. Are they going to be discrete isolated cells? Is it going to be a bunch of prefrontal convection, which is basically overturns the atmosphere, cools things off? You step out the door, you go, this isn't a severe weather evening. But if it doesn't rain and it doesn't storm and you step out the door, then you feel that warm and humid air and you're like, okay, this feels like a severe weather day. So,
no,
yeah,
100%.
Great question, Jacob. I do think a moderate risk could be issued tomorrow, considering the strength of this system, considering the instability that's in place, considering the ingredients that are there. But there is that uncertainty, and I don't think it will be issued until either the 10:30Z outlook or 16:30, excuse me, which is the 10:30 in the morning, or the 2 o'clock in the afternoon outlook. Yeah, look at that, though. There's the HRRR. So you're going back in time now, and this shows, there it is, that energy that comes in. By the way, those are going to be noisy. You're going to notice, oh, something came in, and there's going to be lightning and thunder with those, and probably some really heavy rain. But and then you can see that break. Now, at that time, temperatures have cooled off. Yeah. And so the next line that comes through, of course, it's not going to be as intense because the instability is gone. Then you can see those storms are still pretty intense in the river valley. I think regardless, I think LaFleur County, Scott County, Logan County, Sebastian County, very similar to November 4th, what they saw. I think there's going to be severe weather there for sure.
Yeah, well. You're going to really have to be on your toes if you're in southern portions of the river valley tomorrow, because this system means business. That is for sure.
Yeah. So some other questions. You don't have to pop them up, but David said severe weather severity greater to the south of Northwest Arkansas, Decatur. It is greater to the south, but it's not. It's not zero over Decatur and over your area. In fact, some of the helicity tracks, and I haven't seen the newest HRRR, but let me see if I can load it up and take a look, and I'll share my screen while you're showing some other stuff. But I know that the HRRR did have some helicity tracks that rolled right through Northwest Arkansas.
Man, the NAN 3 kilometer, that wouldn't be good. We don't get as much prefrontal convection there. Temperatures are still in the upper 60s, lower 70s as that line moves in.
Let's see. That's not good at all. Yeah,
that'd be QLCS City.
And the QLCS tornadoes are those ones that, man, you really have to be on your guard.
Oh, 100%.
Let's see here. Some other questions. And by the way, I am back on the air tomorrow, and Josh and I will be tag team in this event. Zach will be on in the morning if there's storms in the morning. Rhonda had a good question, though. Let's pop that up on there. It kind of was a little bit earlier in the time. So Rhonda Layerly said, I heard something called invisible tornadoes, meaning tornadoes we can't really see until last second. Is this still happening? These invisible tornadoes are called rain wrapped tornadoes. So a lot of times QLCS tornadoes are rain wrapped. And a lot of times, unfortunately, because they are so quick to develop and very difficult to detect on radar, they can go without warning. So you be sitting there, all of a sudden you hear a roar and you're like, that doesn't sound like anything I've heard before. And it could easily be a tornado that comes through. And so if you're outside trying to look for it and you've got rain all around, it's what storm chasers call rain wrapped tornadoes, meaning they're wrapped around in the rain and you can't see it. And we've been watching a lot of storm chasers. We've been binge watching that, my son and I, along with my wife occasionally. And there's been a lot of rain wrapped tornadoes where you're punching through the core and then all of a sudden there it is, like a few hundred yards away from them. So that is a good question. Invisible tornadoes, tornadoes you can't see until the last second. And typically you hear them before you see them. So be aware of that.
Like the term, Dan, bear's cage.
Yeah.
They get caught up in the bear's cage. The tornado is the bear. and the cage is all the hail, rain, and wind inside.
Yeah, and you don't want to be in the bear's cage. If you've got a bear in a cage, you don't want to be in there. It's a dangerous place. So,
Nope.
all right, let's take a look at some other stuff. Hey, Vance, one of my buddies says Happy New Year's. Hey, Happy New Year, Vance. Hope you had a great one. All right, let's see. Let's keep scrolling down here. Level 3 creeping northwest each day. It is.
It has.
Absolutely. So Bella Vista is still in the risk. You can see there's the tornado potential, and it's still there. So NAM 0Z SIG Tour with photographs are interesting for tomorrow. Let's take a look at the photograph, because there's something that I'm concerned about, the actual potential of the tornado realization. And Josh and I, we've been talking about this. So I'm going to bring up as soon as I get this on my screen and load it up. Seems like everything wanted to shut down on me. While I'm doing that, Josh, you go ahead and keep showing some other stuff.
Yeah, I like this comment right here. Figured we pay for this warm weather. It happens almost every time we get this warm during the winter months. Is that it's almost inevitable that you're going to have a severe weather event. It's just the bad thing about warm weather this time of year, and especially in a La Nina pattern like we're in right now, where we get all these extremes and these systems that push through, and things can get wild really quickly. I mean, as Matthew said, we were at 5 below zero a few weeks ago, and now we have 60 degrees and talking about severe weather. I mean, that's no surprise. And we talked about that too, Dan, in our winter weather forecast, is that there was going to be a lot of extremes, a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that, Josh, because obviously I wasn't completely oblivious to the weather, but when we had that little weather system that came in, and yes, granted the snow wasn't all that spectacular, but the reason for that is the track of the low was a little farther northwest, and so the heavier snows really didn't, materialize, but it was cold. And think about that. That was just about a week ago. And remember what I was telling you, Josh, about how those rapid drops and then those rapid rises, and that's typically when it happens. If you look at big severe weather days, look a week before, and it's typically very, very cold. And so you get those dramatic changes. And Josh, you can bring me up on camera. I don't know if you remember this, but when we were seeing the models, it was right before I left on vacation, and we were seeing the models rapidly increase the temperature, and I was just like, now wait a minute, come on, we didn't believe it, did we? And we got to give credit to where credit's due, because the models did get that correct.
They actually
did get that warm up correct. Now it did stay cold for a while, and boy did it get cold, and it was even colder than what the models were predicting right before Christmas. However, they did get that warm up, and I doubted it.
Yeah, I mean, I doubted it too. I was like, this doesn't seem right, like that quick. Because it was like a snap of your fingers, and we went from below zero to 59, 60 degrees. And
my pumps were thankful for that. My pipes and pumps were thankful for that, for sure. So let me show you something here. I can bring up this. This is the photograph thing that someone was talking about. So I'm going to share.
Yep, and I'll add that.
Here we go. Stand by. We're going to do this right here. It's going to be one screen, but this is the surface-based CAPE and 3-kilometer NAM. And I'm going to explain all this, but first of all, you're going to see these colors start filling in on the screen. This is that instability that's working its way back northward. And boy, does that come surging back in a major way. Look at that. That's over 1,000. That's way over 1,000. That's spring? That's almost 1,500.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of instability. Look at this, like in the river valley. I don't know if you saw that, but it looked like there was almost nearly 2,000. Let's see here. If I go right here. Oh, that's actually a hole. So no, it wasn't near 2,000, but 1,500 for sure, which, by the way, is more than sufficient. So here's what we want to do. We want to look at, this is the one thing that I do question. Well, a couple things that I question, but the one thing that I really question with the wind shear is the wind profile, because it is a very impressive photograph. However, The storm motions are going to be generally north-northeast. Now, when you're
Mhm.
looking at that, and can you see my cursor on the screen?
Hold on one second. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger.
Yeah, you can make mine full screen
There
by
we go.
clicking that very right one. Well, no, actually, no, that's not going to do it. Here, let's see. Oh yeah, there you. Nope, that's the. Yep, that's the photograph. That looks good. Now, can you see my cursor when I get on there? Right here.
Yep, I can see it. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right,
Very
perfect.
clearly.
So first of all, this is a little bit of a cape robber right here. You can see this line kind of juts to the right instead of
Yep.
going up on a diagonal in the upper left. So that's limiting the instability just a little bit. Now, whether that happens or not remains to be seen. However, if we look at this photograph, the general storm motion, if you notice, the flow is mainly out of the south-southwest.
Mm-hmm.
So we are not going to get many deviant storm motions, in my opinion. These storms are going to be moving north-northeast, just like what we saw November 4th. And if you remember, there wasn't a single tornado that was over EF2. Most of them were EF0, EF1. If we look at this angle, and the angle that I'm talking about is, so first of all, our storm motion, our general storm motion is going to be right about where my cursor is. So if you were to draw a line from the center of the photograph to the storm motion, and you look at it on a radar, that's moving north-northeast. The angle between the storm motion down to the bottom of the photograph, okay, and then you see this line right here. This is taking it to 500 meters. This is about 500 meters on the photograph above the ground. You got to take it to right about here. That's where the kink happens. And so if we take the angle from, this is the angle right here, from this line to this line, you got way less than 90. You see that, Josh?
Yes, way less.
Way less than 90. So that is one concern in terms of maximizing this tornado potential. It's one thing that's very questionable. And it kind of reminds me of December 13th, where tornadoes didn't go nuts on that day. But actually, I was thinking there was another event late November, wasn't there? Southeast of us.
December
the
13th,
critical,
it was all southeast of us.
but
November
remember
4th,
that
there
one where
was
the critical
significant
angle didn't line
tornadoes.
up?
Say that again.
Remember that one where the critical angle didn't line up and the tornadoes?
Oh, yes. It was in Dixie Alley. I chased that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was late November after Thanksgiving.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep.
Very similar, where we don't have those storms lining up. So obviously we're geeking out here, but let's look at the HRRR and see what that has for at 24-hour. And notice the angle's even worse.
Yeah, it's terrible. Well,
it's 51, but it's not really 51.
It's not a true 51.
No, because you have to look. The critical angle is always done on the right mover. Well, we might not have a right mover. We might have mostly our general mean storm motion is going to be basically north-northeast.
Now, Dan, I think, and here's something that I think would be cool to explain. What you mean by, like, why the storms need to become right movers in order for us to get stronger tornadoes. I think that would be cool to explain that, because I think that's pretty interesting how we're trying to get that critical angle to as close to 90 degrees as possible. And the only way that can happen is if the storm motion deviates from what the photograph is showing.
That's right. So what I'll do is I'll bring that photograph back up just so you can see it, because I closed it down right when you asked about that. But here, we'll go back to the NAN 3 kilometer. We'll click on this. Boy, that looks terrible. That's because that's because it's only 9 hours out.
Yeah.
There we go. That's a little better.
There we go.
So this angle right here and this angle right here is where you want 90 degrees. That's the critical angle. It's not always to 500 meters above the ground, but the reason that is important, and I don't know if you can bring me up on camera on screen. I'm going to shop.
Yes.
I'm going to, let me do that. I'm going to pause this. Okay. So basically, there's a horizontal roll that occurs along the ground because of the way the wind shear is. So imagine, let's see, this is looking south. So the wind's coming this way from south to north. And then above that, you've got faster winds. So you're doing this. See how that happens? That's because of the wind shear. So that creates a horizontal roll. That horizontal roll, if you're looking right down it, I'm going to use a candle here. So there's our horizontal roll. All right. And the storm has to parallel that horizontal roll for it to get pulled up into the vertical to create a tornado. That's why you're looking for that 90 degrees. And that 90 degrees can only happen if the shear lines up. Now, if it does, you get that horizontal roll that's like this, and the wind shear's coming this way. So let's say I'm south and the camera's north. So you got wind coming from the south. It's creating this horizontal roll. Now we've got the storm coming in from the west. And so it's going to take that and it's going to pull that spin right up into the vertical. And then when you get the tilting and the stretching, which is basically when the thunderstorm grows, it gets taller. So the spin starts increasing because of conservation of angular momentum, just like a figure skater pulls his arms in, starts spinning faster, pulls their arms in, starts spinning faster. Same way the tornado works. We actually have a graphic on it, the streamlined vorticity graph. If we really, really, really want to geek out, before we do that and before we lose everybody on our viewing audience, let's see if there's any other questions that we have to answer that are really important. Josh Weisel saying updraft helicity tracks are interesting. So let's, yeah. I was just looking at that, as a matter of fact, when you pop that up. So yeah, let's go into that, and we'll take a look at those updraft helicity tracks. So here we go. There's updraft helicity. And when we zoom in here, you're going to see right about here, 9, 10 o'clock. Look at that. Right through northwest Arkansas, including updraft helicity right through Benton County. But not all models, just to let you know, are showing that. So if we look at, and that's like at 10 o'clock. I think that's a lot later than what the HRRR shows, which, by the way, won't have it out. So here's updraft helicity on this. And so you can see it kind of has a lot less. But notice how those motions, Josh, I don't know if you can see that. They are moving from the southwest to the northeast. Those are almost due northeast.
Yeah, directly northeast. That one's
in order for a critical angle to line up, those storms have to be a little bit more easterly, unless the wind shear doesn't line up exactly like the models are showing. So kind of some cool stuff there with pivotal weather.
And I got this right here, Dan, if you want to check it out.
Yeah. Okay. So this is that description. So you have essentially that wind that is, you got the wind shear, strong southerly winds. And in this case, Josh, they are coming from the southeast, the winds. So if we tilt this.
Hold on just 1 second here.
We crashed the system.
I think the system just went down. Hold on.
Did it?
Hold on.
In the meantime, I'm just going to do a rapid fire. Okay, here we go. All right, so there it is. There's the horizontal roll, that vortex tube. It's very low to the ground. It's about a half a kilometer, sometimes even lower. Okay, now we got the storm that's going to follow it. That's the 90 degrees that you're looking for. And then that takes that spin, it pulls it up into the vertical. And then what happens is the thunderstorm grows, the tilting and stretching makes the rotation faster, and the tornado develops. Now, that is as complicated as that was, that's a very basic understanding of how tornadoes develop, because there are a lot of other, micro scale and mesoscale features that we still don't understand to this day.
Such as outflow boundaries.
Yeah, outflow boundaries can throw all that off. So,
hey, by the way, Dan, let me just throw this out there. I don't know if you agree with this or not. If we do have, let's say, some storms that form around 1, 2 o'clock that move through northwest Arkansas and the River Valley, which would definitely sap our instability a little bit. Do you think we could have maybe some outflow boundaries that interact with these storms that come in around 4 or 5 o'clock and maybe enhance them a little bit more?
It's always a possibility. That's
Mhm.
something to think of. Yeah. But if we convectively overturn our atmosphere, the outflow boundary won't really matter.
Yeah.
So let's go to, all right. So here's what we're going to do here. Yeah. You have the figure we pay for this warm weather. What's crazy as well is we were -5 not long ago. Yep. You already mentioned that. What is the timing of these storms moving through? So this is a 20 minutes ago. We did go through the timing, but the main timing is going to be perhaps around early to mid afternoon, and then more likely between, as you mentioned, about 6 o'clock in the evening until 10, 11 at the latest. So there you go, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And remember, timing's always kind of tricky, but I do think right around sundown and a little after, we're going to get, it's going to get pretty
Testy.
dicey. Yeah,
Dicey. Yes.
dicey. Looking back, traveling from the area. So, what is the timing of these storms moving through? You just got to make sure if you're traveling, you don't want to be on the road at 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. So, Happy New Year. Yes. Updraft Felicity's looking. How much rain are we expecting? So, I think the rain, because of these storms and how fast they move through, I think a ½ inch to an inch is going to be probably most likely.
Yeah, the rain has definitely gone down quite a bit compared to
Yeah.
yesterday. Yesterday, these models were showing like 4 inches, and now look at
Oh,
this,
yeah.
not nearly as much.
There is a bullseye there of some heavy rain, but yeah, you can see the storms coming through pretty quick.
Yeah.
So just like the Joplin tornado, it came out of nowhere. Yeah, the Joplin tornado was very wild. There was a lot of things that went on with that. Marley has a question about long track tornadoes. Go back to the. I don't think there's going to be long track tornadoes with the way the wind shear is. Now that could change, but if the wind shear remains and comes to fruition with what it shows, I just don't think that critical angle, as we've been mentioning, and how it doesn't line up with that horizontal tube is going to provide long track tornado potential. Now, one thing, the storms are going to be moving pretty quick, so it won't take long for them to travel very far. But I don't think you're going to get like, a Yazoo City tornado
Yeah.
or something like that. Are you speaking of the northerly component on the Hodo? So it's actually a southerly component because they flipped the hodograph around. A lot of people don't realize that, but it looks like you're looking north, but you're actually looking south. Straight up is a south wind, because typically in severe weather, and especially in the southern plains, you have a south wind. So I love Arkansas.
But the storm motion
It's
is actually correct, like the correct direction from what you're facing. If you're looking
Yeah,
at
the storm, remember, just like the wind, you name the direction the storm is coming from.
Right.
So you don't think of that when you have it moving northeast on a radar, but it's coming from the southwest. So a southwest flow would be a storm coming in from, 225, which is the degrees. Josh said, "Kudos for a great job. You did amazing, Josh. I'm just so thankful for you." Daniel says, "Is our weather radio going to be going off?" I would not be surprised if it goes off. Absolutely. All right. Here's a new question from what is the timeline of these storms? 842. Bryna asked, traveling to northwest Arkansas from Kansas. Not sure whether to go through Oklahoma and Missouri to avoid. I don't know if you're going to be able to avoid everything, but if you can get out early, that would be a better idea than getting out late. You got the radar over my house on the map. That's funny. We got you covered. I don't think there's going to be a PDS watch tomorrow. If there is, it would be in southwest Arkansas. I just don't see that for here, especially with the uncertainty. Chase mode is on. That's what Chris Ebert said.
Storm chase mode activated.
Yep. That's going to be me with 1.19 twisted here pretty soon.
Yes. Dude, I got to get on that, man. That looks amazing. Cool. Dude, by the way, that picture you sent me, Dan, that was the fattest wedge I've ever seen in my life.
Really? Because yours was pretty big.
Yeah, mine was really big, but yours had that. It almost looked like a cylinder. It was.
By the way, we're
really
talking
strange
about tornado in a game, just to let you
Yeah.
know. People are watching like, that sounded interesting. Sorry I'm late, but I'm Evan Murray. Oh, Evan, what is going on, man? My super weather kid. I am doing well. You remember him?
Yes, sir.
He was real impressive.
All
You
over
still
it.
love weather. That's so cool. I'm so glad.
Ripping it up. NFL
And
Productions.
he's got the Pats too. Yeah, I wonder
Yes,
what
sir.
that is. Okay, quick comparison. Exactly. That's a Roby. Roby agrees. Yeah, that was an interesting conversation. But he's talking about tornadoes on Twisted, which, by the way, is a really cool game on Roblox. So here's the deal. Let's come back on camera, and I think that's the end of the questioning. I know you got to get ready for your 9 o'clock, so we could shut it down here. But I will sum it up in this way: I'm going to be in early tomorrow. We're going to gear up. We're going to be ready to go. We'll do a Facebook Live showing the latest conditions. We'll show the storms that are potentially popping up. If it's sunny tomorrow and it goes all the way through 4 or 5 o'clock and we don't have a single storm in the area, which could be a possibility with that cap that's in place, then it could be explosive tomorrow evening.
Yeah, it's game on.
And so we need to watch that for sure. Yeah. And so the biggest concern right now is going to be the thunderstorm development during the afternoon into the early evening. If that does take place, then we'll cool things off. But even with that being said, the system is strong. The wind shear is there. We definitely need to watch it closely, and we will.
Absolutely, 100%. And like you said too, the morning's going to determine a lot about what we see in the afternoon hours, I think. And I think I don't think there'll be much in the way of severe weather during the morning hours at all. I think after the 2 to 3 o'clock time frame, that's when it's game on. And if we get anything before that, then I think the severe weather risk will be lower. It won't be zero, but I don't think the potential for stronger tornadoes will be there if that happens.
Hey, show off your storm is brewing tie.
Oh, yeah.
Look at what he got. A little Christmas present
took this.
right
now,
there.
Here's the thing. This is from the Dan Scoff playbook right here. It's the number one play. You just gotta pull it out
That's
when
awesome.
severe weather's coming.
My daughter got me some new ties too. So
heck yeah.
Yeah, take me off the screen. I'll go run and get them real quick, and I'll show.
Oh,
and
heck yeah. I want to see these.
We'll end as.
Heck yeah. Yeah, Dan's about to show off these amazing ties. Dan's tie game is very nice. Let's see here. I just want to see if we got any more comments here. You think the SPC will move the enhanced risk north? I think it will move slightly north, Anna. We'll see if it moves into northwest Arkansas. I don't think it will, but I think it will lift a little bit further north along that I-40 corridor, which is where the significant tornado risk is right now, according to the SPC. All right, here we go. It's tie time. It's tie time.
All right, so in case it's just a flooding event.
Oh,
I got the rain tie right there. You'll like this one. Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. Hey, and you can use that one too if we get like the same weather event the very next week.
And you ready for this? QLCS.
Ooh.
Tie. We'll see how that keys out on the wall. That might be a little bit of trouble, but at least
I love that one. Now that one is
cool?
really cool, dude.
Look at that.
Now, can let's try and point out where those nudges are. That way we can see where those QLCS tornadoes will.
Well, this is a balanced right here. UDCZ. There's a balanced UDCZ right there. That's probably slightly shear dominant. So I think the whole line could be possible.
Yes.
Anyways, those are really cool. I thank my daughter for those. So well, let's shut it down, Josh. Make sure you watch his shows tonight. He'll have the latest, and we'll be in tomorrow. And we'll keep you safe.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And like I said, Dan, thank you so much for trusted me over the last couple weeks to do that. That really means a lot. And like I said, I'm so grateful to be working here with y'all. And I made that post about that on New Year's Eve, just reflecting on 2022, and it's just been a great year working with y'all.
You
It's
did
just
the
awesome. I'm so
grind,
happy to be
man.
part
You
of
did
this
the
team.
grind. Thanks so much, man.
Yes. All right,
right.
guys. Well, everybody have a fantastic rest of your New Year's Day, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Stay safe, everybody, and God bless.